right, we are live. As promised, I was going to do a stream today, and I did. I'm doing a little bit later than I intended to because I fell asleep, or was asleep when it was supposed to occur, and that's that. Now, I'm going to try to tread lightly because a lot of the point I'm attempting to make here has to be said in a certain kind of way where I have to like catch my words and whatnot. Um, one of the points of the Justice Democrats being a thing and like existing in the first place was that you had a group of candidates who were left wing that should they win office would act as a progressive push within the DNC or the Democratic Party. So this means they don't focus on the same topics that regular Democrats do. Um, there are a lot of people who like to spread these theories about Ilhan Omar, but I said before, one of the main things that has really differentiated her from a lot of the other Democrats is being ardently opposed to bootlicking for Israel. And this is unfortunately, because of my lesser thinking contemporaries allowed them to believe she's anti Semitic, but it's still a position that is rare among either party. Um, so that's already something that's worth looking at. But, and I also should mention that a lot of the positions, right, that AOC has, I don't oppose. Like, I've said before, I'm really tired of immigration, like just as a topic that people like to speak about all day, every day. Um, but it's still, it's like I'm not a fan of anything that Trump has to do in relation to it. The issue I have is that it's something I expect Democrats to whine about day after day because they, want to like partner with pretty much any different group that they think is going to vote for them. And all of the other Justice Democrats, from what I've seen, have very little to do with talking about immigration. They usually are involved in some international issue or something else that is not focused on as much. Which is why I was saying that one of the people I like, Rokana, is one of the few Democrats that supports really having a discussion about tech jobs and automation and a lot of things that you just don't see from the party and most of its members that are able to get any kind of spotlight. Um, and I actually had a person where they were contrasting, and this was a really smart analysis on their part, the difference between someone like Tulsi, for example, right? So if you look at Tulsi's positions, where she's opposed to the border wall, this other stuff, it's not different really at all, pretty much from AOC. I think she might not be as in favor of a single payer system as AOC is, but for the most part, their positions line up fairly similarly. The difference is that because Tulsi refuses to discuss domestic issues anywhere near as much as AOC or as any of the other House Democrats, pretty much, she tends to be able to escape a lot of the same stigmas that they give Democrats. So, for example, she could support, um, you know, being opposed to building a border wall, and you'll have various Trump supporters who will go, "Oh, that's that Democrat that always talks about ending those really unpopular wars." It doesn't cross their mind that she could, have the same immigration position because she never talks about it. And I have no problem with her not talking about it because I'm sick of it. If we have 400 members of the House and they're all whining about immigration all day, nothing else gets focused on. And I'm completely fine with having at least one or two members that are entirely on international issues because, like I said before, we're bombing 7 countries, and you can turn any of these major networks, and you would think that it's like this peaceful time of prosperity. Um, but this was obnoxious, right? Because like I expect immigration stuff. I expect the focus on that to come from people like Pelosi, Hoyer, Clyburn, all the usual career politicians. But when I have someone who's getting like all this damn coverage and they're focused entirely on stuff that already gets attention, it's like who cares? Like you're just going along with the trend. And we actually had a scenario where I was explaining that you could take any other member of the Justice Democrats, uh, And more particularly, you could take, I can name multiple members of Congress, whether they're a Democrat or Republican, who have done much more than AOC. In some cases, a much usually as not that much of a longer time of being there. So Ro Khanna, for example, I've often said that he is, in my opinion, the best member of the House at this point, and that's because he went after Amazon along with Sanders to raise workers' payments or raise their pay. Um, got a bill to suspend the U.S.'s involvement in Yemen passed in the House and Senate, and it only didn't get signed into law because Trump vetoed it. You know, in a Republican-controlled, supposedly completely divided government, he was able to get this bill to end a war passed through Congress. Um, so spoke with Carter to try to fix the situation in North Korea. There's plenty of things we can go through his record and say, but the point is that he's not like some little person who's known just because of their name recognition. I know him particularly due to his actual substantive stances on multiple issues. He strongly opposed getting involved in Venezuela. These are things that I don't see from a majority of members of that party. So he stands out, and yet he's really not that much further involved with this stuff than she is. He's only been in there one term longer than AOC, but yet for some reason she swoops up all of this coverage. Um, when, to my knowledge, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, the only two significant votes slash bills she's had since being in Congress, so this is like what, 6, 7 months in, were the Green New Deal, which got voted down because it was in a Republican Senate, um, and being one of, what was it, 4 Democrats to vote against the bipartisan immigration bill. That's it. Like there's really nothing except for a strong social media presence. And I got to say, a lot of times people like to mention that people will get propped up by the media just as kind of a wonderful chore thing. Like they'll say, "Oh, this person gets coverage because they did this." And it's like, yeah, she got coverage because she beat an incumbent in a district a year ago, and it's like been sustained for reasons I don't quite understand. Um, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, it's been proven that Fox mentioned her name over 3,000 times in less than 2 months, and that by February of this year, she had been mentioned on that network more times than any of the presidential candidates on the Democratic side, with the exception of Warren. So it's ridiculous. It's really strange, and I'm someone who's been following this stuff since late 2013. I have never seen a single member of the House, speakers included, covered to such an extent. I don't like Pelosi because she's a corrupt, multi 100 millionaire who's just does nothing. She's accomplished nothing. She is we can go into the warmonger, but she deserves coverage for just from being Speaker of the House, from being Democratic leadership. Not a fan of Trump, obviously. He deserves coverage from the position he has. This is a random member of the House who won an election last year that surprised people, that just has continuously gotten this like strange amount of focus, and I don't understand it. It's really obnoxious, and I also want to explain that somebody might say to themselves, just don't watch Fox, don't watch CNN, don't watch any of these. No, no, no. We're talking when politicians, right, when they become popular enough, as in not like, oh, I love them, but well known, to where people can start referencing them and stuff that like has nothing to do with politics. That's when they've crossed over. So for example, I was watching a video by one of the Stand with Vic people. If anyone's familiar with the Vic Mignogna situation, where we've got this voice actor being accused by these different chicks who, for some reason, if want me to believe that they were mistreated by him, and yet it took them 10 years to say anything. Whatever, I've already said I don't buy it. But one of these guys who also doesn't buy it has a channel where he talks about this stuff recurringly. And I was watching and I just also want to mention, I'm not a frequent viewer of his, so this is why it's even creepier. I'm watching one of his videos, and as he's speaking, he's talking about, I think the context was, there's some kind of feminist thing he was mentioning, or because you have the different members characterizing people like they're saying that if you don't believe him. You're women haters. All this weird stuff. But he says after talking about one group of people having some kind of ideology, he's like, I think you guys been listening to too much AOC." And it just, I was like, what? It's strange. But then I looked on Twitter. I go on Jimmy Marchi's Twitter. She's one of the chicks that's accused Vic of these allegations. And I think it's in February or March. I scrolled up. This has been several months ago. But she was retweeting AOC. And I was like, how the hell does this person who is a voice actor, never talks about politics, never mentions any of this stuff, retweeting this member of the House? I watched a video by a guy a few days ago where he was talking about some woman issue, and all of a sudden brings her up. So this I mention this because these are all people who will tell you they're apolitical. They don't follow this stuff regularly. They don't um, try to really know the, I guess, nooks and crannies of any of these things, and they have seen and are well aware of her enough to keep mentioning her and all this stuff that has nothing to do with anything political. And you would never see the same thing done for any other member of the House except for maybe Pelosi. But my point in saying that is they're not mentioning her or picking those two up particularly because they're some accomplished people. They're mentioning them because they're the only ones they know. There was another poll that they did this year where there was like they asked people, who do you think are the most powerful members of the House, and they had Pelosi first place, AOC second place. I said to myself, what kind of sick, deranged, deprived world do you have to live in of like complete ignorance for people to say, yes, the second and third highest ranking, Democrats in House leadership are less powerful than a congresswoman with millions of followers on Twitter. This kind of stuff I'm talking about. It makes no sense. And like you can't objectively, if you are aware of these positions and the powers they hold, say that because someone on Twitter has a bunch of followers, they're more important or they have more power than people who are actually higher ranking in leadership. Like that was crazy as hell to me. But again, people they like to believe whatever they want to believe. So I don't get it. I don't understand. I've seen many different people in office who I think are more progressive. I've seen many people in office who I think are more effective in condemning stupid stuff, who I think deserve way more attention than what she's been given, and have been around longer and just completely been ignored. I remember a lot of progressives like to crap all over Warren because she didn't endorse Sanders. I'm like, you guys are going to crap on Warren for that, but then you're going to ignore Merkley. That's the one Democratic senator who endorsed him for endorsing him for doing the thing that you wanted. Like, what level of sense does that make? We're going to be pissed off at this one senator, progressive senator, forever because she didn't endorse Sanders. But the person who did, we're going to act like you don't exist. We're going to completely and look. I'm going to be fully transparent. I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of these other progressives not having vaginas. I'll be the first one to admit it because I keep watching all these different people that are getting propped up on TV, and it's mostly chicks. And look, if it's someone like Tulsi or Warren, who actually I can name multiple things they've done, I don't have a problem with them getting covered. But it's like there's this weird sort of, and we've discussed this on here before. This like attention to females for no reason. And wow, the people in here are just completely quiet. I was expecting a bigger participation, but like it's not. That's how you guys roll. You just want to listen to me speak and jump in and out. So I guess that's cute. Yeah, I think she's been really just given way too much attention for having basically done nothing other than uh, cast like one deciding vote. Not even a deciding vote, one of those like standout votes where it's like, oh, the whole chamber except for three people voted for this. And then it's like, I'm supposed to believe you're part of this group that's going to come and save the people from the evil, corrupt DNC, but then you're sitting over there uh, voting for Pelosi as speaker, and then also going around trying to talk about the same stuff she discusses. And it's all part of this like little incremental thing of, oh, if I just put up with this higher ranking, crappier politician for long enough, maybe there'll be something I can get out of it. It's like, yeah, you're going to get your own base, the people who voted for you, to get sick of you. And you're going to take up the space of someone who could have been much more effective in opposing whatever she was doing that you didn't like. Because, like I said, we have 7 wars we're in. And contrary to popular belief that none of them started under Trump, um, to my knowledge, Pelosi did vote to get out of Yemen. But again, that's 1 out of 7. And it's like, how do you have that statistic, this fact, and you completely ignore it? You act like it doesn't even exist. All you want to do is sit around and talk about immigration all day. And then it's not even anything new. It's just more border wall opposition. It's not anything like the criminalizing crossing. You get my point. If you would discuss it and actually make it seem like you're talking about different facets of the problem, I could kind of live with that. But it's just, if you're a Republican, wall is great. Democrat, wall is stupid. This, that, and the other, and then everything else gets completely sidelined for some reason. We just had this situation right here with the supposed attempt to have peace in Afghanistan, or it was some kind of secret meeting that was supposed to take place that got canceled. It's like, if these progressives were actually serious about being what they're supposed to be, they would go to the Democratic leadership and say, "Hey, pricks, we've been in Afghanistan for 19 years. Why don't you want to end this? Why did you, not encourage the president to have this meeting or to try and do something relating to it?" But no, they act like it doesn't exist, and then they go on Twitter and run their mouths over something. I'm really getting sick of going on these different websites. As I said before, I don't use Twitter anymore after what they did to my account, other than to like have access. But it's just really obnoxious going on there and reading the same post every day from the same several members of Congress talking about we need to fix this issue of people being discriminated against and blah blah blah. Like, and I said before, you could take all of Trump's tweets, put them next to his policies, and put the former in the trash because they're not as significant as what is actually being done. So when you go around condemning the fact that, if you're AOC, that he told you to go back to where you came from, it's like, yeah, it's a stupid comment, but if it's so dumb, then don't respond to it. Or just say it's dumb. Don't write a paragraph. I don't need to read an essay about why telling 3 people who were from the US to go back somewhere is stupid. I don't like, that's already, it's self-explanatory. It's like if I were to go and, I don't know, go stand in a restaurant, right, with no shirt on, no shoes. Um, and then there's like a sign right above me that says no shirt, no shoes, no service. It's like, yeah, the sign already, you don't need to tell me about me not wearing this stuff. It's right there. You can see it for yourselves. Well, let's go on here and see these new posts, these wonderful new texts that are changing the world and helping out people abroad and whatnot. Just every single day, man. Too often, elite institutions and corrupt people slash organizations have a symbiotic launch each other. So this is again like, what the hell are you even talking about? MIT media. Uh, this is from 2 days ago. The president is corrupt and must be impeached, said every Democrat ever. As we hammer away at climate deniers, the fossil fuel industry is pivoting to promote bogus climate policies. You better believe they'll be dumping cash to lobby all members of Congress, not just their bread and butter Republicans. Learn about how they're working it here. But here's the thing: if you've got an account with millions of followers and you really believe that Congress is corrupted by fossil fuel, and it is, these companies paying out politicians, why don't you go after Manchin? Why don't you go after members of your own party who are taking your position and sticking their middle finger in front of it, instead of sitting there whining like all the other Democrats about the evil Republicans that are being funded by these groups. Like, no, it's both ways. And that's so aggravating because the point again of the Justice Democrats was to have a segment of that damn party who said, you guys are corrupt. You do the exact same thing as Republicans. There's no difference other than D next to your name being different from an R. Like you were supposed to be a third way uh, ideology that just said screw both sides if they do the same thing. And instead, it's more of just blah 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 on these different websites, virtue signaling. Oh yeah, president's corrupt. I'm not going to explain. I'm just going to say he is. And that's why people like Tulsi, she doesn't sit there whining about impeachment or immigration or any of that stuff that just doesn't matter. It's not significant. Certainly not as significant as losing thousands of lives overseas and then being guzzled out of trillions of dollars in these foreign conflicts. And then coming back here at home and you having people say, how are you going to pay for that domestic program you want? Well, if you didn't go into Afghanistan for almost 20 years, we'd probably be able to afford it. And if it's so damn expensive, where do you keep getting the several hundreds of billions of dollars for these wars every single year? God, man, every single tweet is just like here's a good one right here. Netanyahu's discrimination decision to ban members of Congress from Israel harms intel diplomacy. And it's like, okay, I'm glad you condemned something related to Israel, and it's in particular its government, not Israel, the country. You get my point, or rather, what I'm trying to say here. But why does it take it being in the news for you to discuss it? Because remember, that group's point was there are issues that regular Democrats are not attempting to show any kind of interest or focus on. Therefore, we should, proceed to be the ones who actually pay attention to this stuff. And it's more of the same. Oh yeah, I'll talk about this topic, but only if it's being covered first. It's like, no, Israel's government sucks every day of every week. You can find stories of. I would love to just go and on like Google their news archive. You can find stories dating years and years back of all the horrible stuff they've done. Not even just at the West Bank, but the point is that this stuff would get much more people outraged if what is apparently one of the more popular members of Congress in terms of their followers on social media came out and said, "Hey, this country is its government is doing this thing to these Palestinians, and the Republicans and some Democrats are stupid enough to try to say that people are anti-Semitic just for admitting the casualty numbers and various other crimes that are being committed." But again, because it's not news story, it's not something you can try and all blame on Trump. It's completely ignored. And then right here saying that Steve King should resign. Man, that's the more virtue. Like he's not going to do that, so why even say it? At least when the Republicans say it, it makes sense because they're if one member of someone's party, gets held to task, then it falls on the leadership to say, hey, this person, we stand by him, or no, throw him out like yesterday's tuna. So that at the very least, you can kind of get your head behind. But it's like, I'm supposed to be surprised that you, as a member of the opposing party, think that this person should be out of here. And it's like, you already hated his positions anyway. So why does his rhetoric, all of a sudden make him so reprehensible when his voting record of supporting every single conflict, of taking away people's health care, that should have been the stuff to make you say, hey, he should be out of here via getting voted out. But again, more focus on rhetoric and words and things that people say as opposed to their actions. And this is just, that's why I said Congress is such a joke. Like the people who are there to provide a check on the Democrats inside that party just go, oh yeah, so I'm gonna make change. I'm gonna make change. Let me just have 5 terms. It's like, what the hell are you waiting for? And then they'll be the first ones to get up here and give you think how insane this is. They'll give you a speech about 76% of Americans on paycheck to paycheck, bomb in 7 countries, $1 trillion student loan debt, all of these different things that are true, these statistics that have been proven by the test of time and really demonstrate an image of the U.S. being in peril or in peril. So really dramatic, horrible stuff, right? And concurrently, while they're saying this, they'll take their time to go on Twitter and type about how mean the president's words were, uh, and like have no bills or attempts to fix these issues presented at all, like throughout their a whole. This is again, we're done with the play by play stage of this is just a person who won an election that has only been in office for a little bit. No, no, you've now had over half a year and nothing other than the Green New Deal, which got voted down anyway. So it's like, what are you doing? And no one's got a problem with that. No one says, what? Why is it just rhetoric? This is September. This is what the 8th month. When the 20th happens, it'll be the 8th straight month of the not the 20th, the third. So yeah, it's been 8 months and one bill in 8 months that you were, one flagship proposal. It's like, where the hell's all the other stuff? It doesn't take that long to write bills. It doesn't. I'm sorry. So it's just more of her kind of saying, oh well, I had this like nice little standout legislation. I guess I can sit back and not really do anything for the remainder of my tenure, or I can space it out and try to make it seem like. And it'd be different if they were gathering co-sponsors where they're talking to all these other Congress members. They're going to introduce it together and try to have the thing pass. Like that kind of makes sense, but that's not happening. It's that same thing all these politicians do. They purposely delay action on things to try and see how many terms they can squeeze out of some signature issue. So maybe when she gets in her third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh term, she'll finally start to take a stand against Pelosi and the rest of the same Democrats who are known by actual progressives to not be serious about fixing any of these problems. You see some of the dumb stuff they say, kitchen table issues, uh, Harris's 3 a.m. agenda. It's like you introduce a bill with that idiot who's sitting over there espousing word salad when she offers nothing to fix these problems other than more incremental crap. And they don't call it out. They don't ever say, what the hell are you doing? I'd actually talked about running myself at one point or another. And I was like, it sucks because when you try to like build up people to watch something, uh, you get a lot of these people who just don't want to pay attention to stuff. You give I could easily give like a 40-minute address on one particular topic and maybe get like 10 views out of it. And I said, that's not because I'm some uninteresting person who can't make a case or articulate a position. It's because people don't care. That's why politics in its current era is about celebrity. That's why someone who's only introduced one bill since being in office for almost a full year can get way more coverage than people who have been there for years and done multiple things in as short a time span or uh, a little bit longer. It all adds up, and no one's going to rebuke or critique any of this. They'll get more upset with Trump over saying something than actually doing something. And I just am really tired of watching the same stupid cycle replay itself. It's like this person is so there are all these bad words, and then you get surprised when they keep doing the thing you said they were going to do. Like it's not when his rhetoric shocks you for the 100th time, it's not shocking anymore, and it certainly isn't worth writing another paragraph or essay about because we can sum all of it up with the same few words. It was dumb. It was uncalled for. It was not worth being focused on. All of it goes together. But because she's trying to acquiesce to the, Democratic base, no matter what, um, there's no attempt to really take a stand. Like there's no attempt to say, I don't support impeachment because I think it'll make him more popular ahead of running for reelection. I don't support Pelosi because she is opposed to my agenda. None of that stuff is going to have come from her. With me, I've critiqued Democrats, I've critiqued Republicans, I've critiqued, self-described progressives because I don't care. I don't have any kind of bottom line I'm trying to appeal to, and none of these people are so perfect that I'm gonna like refrain and go, well, I truly believe this person is such a great. And before anyone says that, oh, well, AOC did criticize Pelosi, it won't. No, no, she didn't critique her over any policy-oriented thing. It was she thought she was disrespectful to the new minority member. Man, milk toast and lame as hell. It should have been. I don't know. It should have been her admitting that voting for her for speaker was a mistake. That she's done nothing to assist with any of this because she doesn't care. That would have been good, but that actually takes charisma and not being afraid of if you're going to win re-election in 2 years or not. So because of that, they don't try to go. I remember when I first got into this stuff, I had a person who said, "What would you want to do if you were in this, in office, like you're a House member, a senator?" And I stumbled, and they said, "Well, you shouldn't even bother because, why hold any of these offices if you're not going to do anything with them?" And with them, it's like, why hold any of these if you're just going to use it to make money and gas people up with rhetoric and have a bill every year and a half? Like I don't. This is something I could never do. I could never be in the House, have a term, and then like the entire time I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to get reelected and uh, try to not piss anybody off by talking nice about people I can't stand. Like I just couldn't do it. It doesn't mean it would make it impossible for me to be a politician because they have different deals with various people that they make. It just simply means that there's certain lines I'm not willing to cross for stuff that really isn't worth it. Like, unless the only way I'll renege on my opinion of her being almost completely useless since getting in office is if, let's say, next year or the year after that, we see some big progressive bill that gets a bunch of moderate and centrist Democrats that she's been courting for that period to vote for it. I will completely come back, retract all my statements, but I doubt that's going to happen because it's not about trying to change anything. It's about sitting up, giving a stupid speech about all these different issues. Usually that's true, and then not doing anything when you have the power to. And then going, oh, well, I'm only one member of the House. What can I do? It's like use your office as a pulpit. If I had 5 million subs or followers on Twitter, I would go to these different communities and say, hey, your member of Congress did not vote for this bill, which would help your state or your wherever you are because of reasons A, B, and C. And guess what? Even if you're not the president or a senator, you'll get a hell of a lot more attention than 99% of your colleagues. I wish Roe had the so that Rokana. I wish he had the same number of followers on social media. We would have a field day. It would be great. Like so much stuff that people don't even talk about would be exposed and just. But one can only dream. I mean, I don't get this. Like I've never understood being so reluctant to critique someone that you will allow them to destroy your attempt to really do anything that actually matters or changes stuff at all. Currently, the only thing she's done of any significant consequence was coin the term Green New Deal and win an election against an incumbent who wasn't worth a damn anyway. So it's like I got rid of this crappy politician and I started a saying of a piece of legislation that, from what I've seen, isn't even that bad, but won't get voted on because she's too cowardly to call out members of her own party for being fossil fuel hoes, for taking money from that industry and purposefully diverting from addressing this topic that she claims to care so much about. It's not hard to figure this stuff out. It's not hard to look at it objectively and say this has not worked. But we have an era of laziness and political celebrity to where people can get more focused on how someone what they tweet versus what they actually do in office, and think that there's some kind of effective legislator and some hero. Like I just don't understand any reason why she's popular at all. Like it should have been a few months of coverage and then you recede into the background like all the other members of the House, except for Pelosi. Because again, Pelosi sucks, but she's the speaker. So I mean, for better or for worse, it makes sense to give that clown the coverage. Now, if you have someone who introduces a bunch of bills like Rokana, I think they deserve coverage just simply from the amount of work that they have under their belt or their tenure. But you're literally giving a bunch of coverage to someone who's done absolutely nothing in office besides say things. Like Green New Deal doesn't pass, but it becomes this popular thing for presidential candidates to mention. You have the 70% marginal tax rate. To my knowledge, there was no bill for that. So like what the hell are you doing? What are you what why is this person significant if everything they do is just and well, but like I said before, my true position is I think it's all like tied to people still being in shock over that primary, sort of New York one, and her being a woman. I think if Roe had a vagina, he would get 10 times more coverage than she does. Um, and I like part of me actually kind of halts from saying it because I don't really think I think Tulsi didn't even get any coverage, but with her that it makes sense because they're trying to do a little the smearing thing with Syria, so I refrain from fully going into that position. But yeah, I think a lot of it is due to just believing that like ratings and whatnot. But the media, like you actually had one of the hosts of Fox admit that she is one of their best things for ratings, which is why they mentioned her 3,000 times in less than 2 months on their TV. And I was like, you guys are so stupid. The whole point anyone is good for ratings is because you prop them up. If this channel, imagine if every time you go on Fox, you turn on Fox or CNN or whatever, they say breaking news. Justin just upload a video critiquing whatever the hell, and they start playing clips of it. That would increase my name recognition substantially, just almost overnight. And it would also, secondly, attract more like-minded people to this, and I would thereby be a product of the media that propped me up. Like Fox doesn't realize you kept talking about her so much that she is literally one of the top people in office in the U.S. out of Congress, out of the Senate, not the senators, it's the same thing, out of the governors, out of the state legislators, one of the top ones. I never thought I'd live to see the day that a member of the House, a freshman member, was able to get more coverage than people who had been there in some cases longer than I've been alive. I mean, this is insane. Like, who the hell is sitting up there thinking, "Oh, well, she was just happened to be this person that people liked in the rate"? No, you created that. If you put someone on TV every day for a year, and you got a news story about something they did, the people are going to know who they are. That's why I gave the example I just did. Talking about ratings giants, like yeah, your own ratings giant. You're the monster you created. Damn, it's like it's not hard to figure this out. And they're gonna sit up here and start telling me about because I was speaking to one of the I guess one of these posters on her Twitter stuff. They're like, oh well, she's leading the charge for women to. It's like no, no, no. She is a person who's part of a group that a few of its members get elected last year. She had the most shocking victory, and ever since then we've been in like this vegetative cryogenic state where all we can do is harken back to that as the only thing she's done of huge significance and consequence. Because I said, look, name 3 things she's done in office that weren't rhetoric or a controversy. And all they could do was name the Green New Deal, and that's it. Nothing else, because there's been nothing else. Well, actually, that's not true. There was a bill she did with Harris, I think, having to do with the environment, but people don't know what it is, and she sure as hell didn't talk about it to any full extent. But that's her fault. See, look, when you have let me just give you a pro tip. When you have millions of subscribers or followers in any of these social media sites, and people by and large don't know what your bill is, that's your fault because you have enough backers to organically get your stuff out there. So, I have no sympathy for that not being known. It's like you didn't want it to be known. If you did, you would have tweeted about it more. And why the hell are you introducing bills with neoliberal Harris? I thought you were supposed to hate those pricks. That's like me telling you that I'm so concerned about the environment, and then I'm introducing a climate bill with what's the one the senator that helped the snowball on. Then was like, this is proof that it's still cold. Inhofe, the one from I think it's Oklahoma. Yeah, like you can't do that. You can't say one thing and then do the opposite by getting with someone who's of that ideology and then expecting to be taken seriously. So if either of you has anything left to say, we can wrap this up. Uh, I really don't understand why this lady gets anywhere near the coverage that she does. I don't think she's done a damn thing other than win an election. I'm really tired of watching people like Rokana, like Tulsi, like Barbara Lee, any of these other progressives who have legitimate records of accomplishments get completely usurped. Tulsi's running for president and she's getting less coverage. What the hell is that? So, anything else left to say? Statements, positions? Ron Paul actually, he did a video a few days ago about her climate position. And I was watching, I was like, what other members of the House that like he'd had like because he had Rokana on there one time, but what other members of the House has he had on his show like a news story of and just covered all of what they said? Nobody. So I'm saying like even people who like follow this stuff, they don't talk about people in that position that often. It's usually Trump or a senator. It's not, you sitting there whining about the same congresswoman over and over and over again. The only thing she'll be notable to me for if her trend continues of flapping her gums and like having one bill a year that's actually important is being the first House member I saw that the media, who wasn't in a position of leadership like Speaker of the House or any of the other stuff, who the media had a weird fixation slash obsession with that like spilled over everywhere else. Because I brought up, and you can see this earlier in here if you just got here, I brought up 3 different examples where people who aren't into politics, but are like voice actors and vloggers that are supposed to be non-political, all brought her up. And I was like, what the hell am I watching? Like, why is she in everything now? And I was like, that's a facet of the media. They kept on talking about her. Won't talk about any other member of the House except for this one. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sick of seeing her face on TV. I'm sick of really all of it. Like I'm tired of the different analysis on these networks about her stuff when it's usually just like I remember Fox did a segment about a video of her outside after winning the primary where she was telling these little kids she was going to go to Washington to fight Trump. And it's like you guys have no better thing to do. All the different bills and senators and members of the House you could talk to right now, and you want to do a segment on a video on her Twitter. That's what's worth discussing. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's lowered my opinion of already sucky media, and it's obnoxious. Like I don't fathom how you can even be so singular and focus on one member of the House and then tell the other 400 to basically piss off. So I don't know why no one has said anything. It's getting kind of weird. I don't know if you're stunned or if this is like a test of endurance. We've had like 5 people come in here at different points. I don't really get the well, whatever. I live in the Twilight Zone, so people do stuff like that. They just sit there and watch you talk for some prolonged period. Any last comments? Any last statements? Any last stipulations? I was almost thinking not even doing a stream today because I was so pissed off over this thing that occurred last night that I'll probably allude to, but not get into full for a while. It was dumb. So, anything left to say? Any last comments? We're gonna count them. We're gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right.